Welcome. We've got quite a stack of material today. We're focusing on something I think is, well, maybe the toughest part of leadership. Transition. Building something that actually lasts. An organization, a team, whatever it is, that doesn't just survive, but really thrives after the main person steps away.
Exactly. And the sources we're digging into today, they're not just theory, are they? They come from this really extensive, very practical workbook, all about leadership development, multiplication, think of it like a playbook. It's full of these, frankly, quite provocative exercises. They're designed to shift how a leader thinks, moving from just keeping things running to intentionally reproducing leadership.
Okay, so our mission here is to pull out the systems, the frameworks, the daily routines maybe that are embedded in this material. We need those tools, right?
Yeah.
Things like, I saw mention of a leadership health dashboard and a delegation model. Things that guarantee leadership reproduction, not just, well, keeping the current leader indispensable.
You got it. We want systems for resilience. Because perpetual dependency on one person, that's not sustainable.
Makes sense.
But critically, and this is interesting, before this playbook even gets to the checklists or the how-tos, it really makes you stop and challenge your own definition of success, like fundamentally.
Okay, let's unpack that then. Where does it start? How does it challenge that definition?
Well, it starts by asking us to look past the usual stuff, the vanity metrics,
Like numbers, attendance, budget size, that kind of thing.
Precisely. It asks, what if the real test of maturity for any organization could be a nonprofit, a startup, even a corporate team? What if it isn't the size or the activity level?
Sure.
What if it's whether leadership just thrives without that original founder, without the planter figure?
That's a reframe. Because we do celebrate the inputs, don't we? The activity.
We do. And the material argues we should be measuring the outputs, specifically new reproducing leaders. It talks about expected fruit. And it really pushes you to ask, how does that concept differ from the metrics you currently celebrate?
Wow. Yeah. So if your success, your organization's success, depends totally on you being there,
then the system's broken. Fundamentally, it's not built to last.
that really shifts the goal then. It's not about being a successful leader anymore. It's about being a successful developer of leaders.
That's it. And fundamental to getting that sustainable output, that reproduction, is the leader's own DNA, how they operate.
Okay, talk about that. What's the core DNA?
The sources spend a lot of time here. They argue pretty forcefully that the core DNA of truly fruitful, sustainable leadership isn't about position or power. It's sacrifice.
Sacrifice, like servant leadership?
Exactly that. It's the definition of servant leadership.
Sure.
And the workbook challenges us directly. It asks how we reconcile that humility, that willingness to sacrifice control, with the cultural expectations we often have. You know, the authority, the visibility we associate with being the leader.
That's attention, for sure.
Yeah.
Because visibility often gets mistaken for viability, doesn't it?
It does. And the workbook pushes right on that sore spot. It asks, point blank, when have you seen charisma win out over character in a leader-make decision?
Oof, yeah.
And what were the consequences? Short term, sure, maybe fine, but long term.
Right. It forces you to admit that picking someone just because they're visible or charming can really damage things down the road. It's a risky trade-off.
A huge risk. So, okay, if character and sacrifice are the foundation, the next logical question is, how do we actually do the handover? How do we systematically pass authority to the right people at the right time without, everything falling apart?
Yeah, without causing chaos or, like you said, an institutional mess.
Right.
And that sounds like the perfect segue into maybe the most structured part of these sources, the MAWL framework.
Yes, MAWL. MAWL. This is where it gets really practical, really actionable. It's a clear 4-stage system for delegating not just tasks, but entire roles. It stands for model, assist, watch, and leave. And it's specifically designed to take someone, a mentee, from just watching to actually owning the role in predictable, safe stages.
Let's walk through those stages, because the sources, they seem to stress that the real magic, or maybe the real difficulty, is in the transitions between them.
That's exactly right. So first up is model. And this isn't just showing what you do. Critically, it's showing the why.
The thinking behind it.
Yes. The playbook suggests actually scheduling time, transparent sessions where you explain your rationale. Why did you make that high-stakes decision? What data did you look at? What risks did you weigh? What principles guided you? You're teaching decision-making itself, not just task steps.
Okay, so it's deep modeling.
Yeah.
Then comes assist.
Right. Assist. This is where the mentee gets in the driver's seat for specific parts, but you're still right there in the passenger seat, coaching in real time.
Guiding them, correcting course immediately if needed.
Exactly. And the source makes a key point here. This stage often means the leader has to consciously slow down. Your own efficiency might dip temporarily for the sake of the mentee's learning curve. It's an investment.
That takes patience. Okay, model, assist, then watch.
Watch. Here, you set up a specific observation period. The sources are quite concrete, suggesting maybe 4 to 8 weeks. And you establish a clear, private feedback rhythm during that time.
So the mentee is fully accountable now.
Fully accountable, but you're monitoring closely, ready to step in, but only if things are really about to go off the rails. You're managing the outcome, not micromanaging the process.
Got it. And finally, the scary one, leave.
Leave. Yeah, this definitely requires the most courage, and the sources hit you with that really challenging question here. What if the most powerful thing you could do for your organization wasn't leading longer, but leaving sooner?
Wow, that just flips the script entirely on legacy and control, doesn't it?
Completely. It's terrifying for a founder, for anyone who's built something.
So what does MAWL offer to stop that leave stage from feeling like or actually becoming abandonment? Are there guardrails?
There are, and they're procedural, which helps. First, you confirm the actual transfer date way ahead of time, no surprises.
Okay.
Then you plan and execute a public commissioning, a celebration of the transition, making it official and positive. And crucially, you define what support looks like after the handover.
So it's not just dropping him in the deep end.
No, not at all. It's phased support. Maybe you shift to monthly check-ins for 6 months, something like that. It makes it clear this is a launch, a deliberate handoff, not just disappearing. It formalizes your shift from being the hands-on leader to being a supportive mentor on the sidelines.
That makes a lot of sense. And this MAWL process, it sounds like it works best when you're moving away from relying on just one person.
Absolutely. The sources are really explicit about warning against what they call chief leader models.
Right, the single charismatic CEO or founder type.
Exactly. Instead, they strongly advocate for what they term biblical plurality.
Which, if we translate that to any organizational context, means building a diverse leadership team. Right? A group whose collective gifts are broader than any one person's.
Precisely. You want a team with diverse strengths, maybe teaching, administration, strategy, relationship building, whatever fits the context. The point is, the transition lands with a team, a shared structure, not just finding a replacement chief. It builds in that resilience.
Okay, so we have the philosophy, character, sacrifice. We have the MAWL framework for the handover. What comes next in the playbook? Getting operational.
Yes. Now we dive into the tools, the systems needed to actually make multiplication happen consistently and keep leaders healthy.
The practical stuff. Okay, where does it start? Identifying potential leaders.
Exactly. And the material stresses, if you want multiplication, you have to be intentional about spotting potential. You can't just wait for people to raise their hand or look at who's already visible.
You have to look deeper.
You do. It says look in hidden places among the quiet, faithful, and overlooked. People who might not seek the spotlight but show potential in other ways.
How do you do that systematically, though? Avoid that visibility bias.
Well, they propose a tool called an observation grid. Basically, it's a simple tracking tool, maybe used over 6 months or so.
Okay.
And you use it to log small, consistent acts. Things like faithfulness in small tasks, teachability, signs of informal influence. It's not about tracking stage presence or charisma.
It's about noticing who steps up quietly, who solves a problem without being asked, who mentors someone else naturally.
Exactly. Who cleans up after the meeting? Who takes initiative on that nagging systemic issue? Who shepherds others well in a small group context? Things like that. Consistent small acts.
That sounds really practical. So that observation feeds into what? How does the leader use that information?
It feeds directly into the leader's most critical routine, the weekly leadership review, or WLR. This is non-negotiable. A focused 60 to 90-minute block every single week, no exceptions.
Okay, what happens in the WLR? What's the agenda?
It's got a very clear structure designed specifically to stop the leader becoming the bottleneck. First, standard stuff. Process new items, clear the inbox, get organized.
Okay.
Second, and this is key, check the MAWL pipeline. Where are specific roles or individuals currently sitting? Model, assist, watch, or leave. It keeps the development process top of mind.
Okay.
Third, they check their leadership health dashboard. We'll come back to that. And then the crucial output.
The priorities for the week.
Yes. Setting maybe 3 critical priorities for the upcoming week. And here's the filter. Ensuring at least one of those priorities is a high-leverage HL action.
High leverage. Let's define that clearly, because that sounds like the core of making this shift from maintenance to multiplication.
It absolutely is. The sources are very clear. Let's say you spend an hour fixing a broken spreadsheet yourself, or troubleshooting some software glitch. That's maintenance. Necessary, maybe, but it's low leverage. You just fixed one problem, one time.
Cool.
A high-leverage action, by contrast, is defined as an action that reproduces leadership. So if you spend that same hour training someone else to permanently own that spreadsheet system, to troubleshoot it themselves in the future, that is high leverage.
Got it. So the filter question is this action making the system run better for me right now, or is it making the system run better without me in the long run?
Exactly that. Am I solving the problem, or am I building the capability in someone else to solve it? That's the HL mindset.
And to make sure the leader actually can make those HL investments, that they have the capacity. That's where the health piece comes in.
Yes. To prevent burnout, which would obviously derail the whole thing, the playbook includes this leadership health dashboard.
What does that track?
It's a proactive tool, a monthly check-in, forcing the leader to rate themselves, maybe on a simple scale, across key categories. Things like spiritual vitality, relational unity within the team, emotional resilience, physical health. The idea is to spot warning signs early, to protect the leader, the primary asset for multiplication, by catching potential crises before they blow up. It's preventative maintenance for the leader themselves.
That seems crucial. Okay, and one more tool you mentioned earlier when delegating, especially in those assist or watch phases of MEL, using RACI.
Right, the RACI template. Responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. It's a classic delegation tool, but the sources add a couple of critical points for making it actually work.
Oh yeah, I have those.
First, the A accountable must be singular. Only one person can be ultimately accountable for the outcome. You can have multiple people are responsible for doing parts of the work, but accountability can't be shared if you want clarity.
Good point. Causes confusion otherwise.
Definitely. And second, when you delegate using RACI, you absolutely must define 3 things up front. 1, the desired outcome. What does success look like? 2, the non-negotiable deadline. And 3, the decision boundary.
Decision boundary, meaning?
Meaning how much authority they have, what level of spending can they approve, what level of risk can they take before they need to come back to you. Defining that avoids constant interruptions and empowers the person you're delegating to.
Okay, that clarifies the delegation piece significantly. So MAWL gives us the handover framework. The WLR provides the rhythm. RCI helps with delegation clarity. What's the ultimate goal driving all this system building?
Well, stepping back, the ultimate metric, according to these sources, it isn't how many followers you gather. It's not about the size of your immediate circle.
It's the number of reproducers you create.
Exactly. Leaders who make leaders, that's the measure of success.
How do they suggest tracking that? It seems harder to measure than just counting heads.
They suggest a practice called generational charting. It's quite simple, really. You literally draw it out.
Okay.
3 generations. First, who invested in you? Who discipled or mentored you significantly? Second, who are you actively investing in right now? Pouring into intentionally. And third, this is the kicker, who are they investing in?
That third generation reveals if multiplication is actually happening.
It's often brutally revealing because you might see lots of activity in Generation 2 people you're leading directly, but a big blank space in Generation 3. It pinpoints exactly where multiplication stalls. You might have followers, maybe even apprentices, but you don't yet have apprentices who are building their own apprentices.
Right. It highlights the difference between addition and multiplication.
Precisely. The goal isn't just addition, it's geometric growth. Reproducing leaders who reproduce leaders beyond your direct reach. Like that Timothy 2.2 model, entrusting things to faithful people who will be able to teach others also. Multi-generational.
And there's one more big shift in perspective towards the end of the material, isn't there? Moving beyond just the organization itself.
Yes, a huge final challenge. It shifts the entire focus from building an entity to igniting something bigger. The sources pose the question, what if your goal wasn't just planting a church or building an organization, but igniting a movement? How would that mindset shift your daily decisions?
Wow. How would it shift things? What does that imply?
It implies that simplicity and reproducibility become your greatest strengths. Movements spread because they're easy to copy. If your internal systems, your training, your leadership structures are too complex, too resource-intensive, too dependent on you, they can't multiply organically.
So complexity becomes the enemy of movement.
Absolutely. Movements thrive on elegant simplicity. They can be reproduced by almost anyone, anywhere, even with limited resources. That requires a fundamental shift away from building something intricate and towards building something fundamentally reproducible.
And tying this all back to the beginning, to that MAWL framework and the courage needed to leave, the sources seem to suggest that letting go is actually the pinnacle act.
It really does. It frames stepping aside at the right time not as failure or retirement, but potentially as the most powerful leadership act you can perform. To facilitate this, the playbook even includes an emotional audit prompt.
An emotional audit. For the leader.
Yeah, to help leaders honestly process the feelings that come with stepping back. Fear of becoming irrelevant, maybe a sense of loss of identity, but also potentially joy and anticipation. Acknowledging those feelings is key.
Why? To ensure the transition is healthy.
Exactly. To ensure it feels like a genuine launch for the next wave of leaders, not like a loss for the organization or a painful exit for the leader. It's about entrusting the future, believing in the people you've raised up. They reference that idea of entrusting the work to God and the next generation.
And they suggest writing a legacy letter too.
Yes, a final step. Summarizing the core values, the non-negotiables that should guide the organization or movement long after the current leaders are gone. Passing the torch clearly.
Okay, this has been, well, a really rigorous mapping of a system. We've gone from the core philosophy characters, sacrificed through the MAWL handover structure, into the daily, weekly rhythms like the WLR, high leverage actions, the health dashboard, RACI. It's quite comprehensive.
It really is. This deep dive, it lays out a clear, systematic path. If you want to build genuine resilience, real multiplication capacity in whatever you're leading, the pieces are here.
So the final thought for our listener,
Yeah.
the provocation to take away.
I think the foundational question, the one that really ties all these systems and frameworks together, comes right at the end of our sources. And it's the question we really encourage you to sit with and reflect on in your own context. Am I building an organization, or am I building leaders who will build the organization? That distinction right there, that's where the real leverage, the true potential for lasting impact begins.